Well, I hope you are having a good conference so far in this very strange, very unique conference setting. Hopefully you're still learning some things, even though we're not physically together. Hopefully you're still able to take some things that you are garnering from our conference setting and being able to implement into your class environment and into your curriculum. So hopefully today we'll be able to share a few things that will help you in your classroom to hopefully give you back a little bit of your sanity. So just to give you some perspective on me, let me introduce myself. My name is Melissa Cunningham. I teach at South Warren High School in Bowling Green, Kentucky, in the Warren County school system. I've been teaching this will actually be my 14th year that I'm about to start. So I've been at it long enough to really be able to see some things, start to notice some patterns, and hopefully I've been able to get some procedures in place and some routines in place to address those. And I do feel like in my classroom setting, I've gotten my sanity back a little bit. And I hopefully will be able to share that with you today. Now, if you want to join me on my PowerPoint, you can see the bit.ly on the bottom of the screen there, and you are welcome to join me with that, or you can just watch right along. That's fine. Either one works for me. So before we get started, I did want to ask you a thought question. Something to think about that will really give this lesson a little bit better meaning. So I want you to think about things that your students do that just drive you insane. Now, I know it's been a while since we've been with our students, and it might be hard to remember what some of those things were. I think the big ones will be easy to remember, that the things that really drive you insane. But maybe just jot down a few things if you want to pause this video and really think through. I think that will help you as we go through this presentation. Think about some things that your students do that really just kind of drive you batty and you want things to be different. So I'd like to share with you a quote. This was on one of my former principal's doors. And he used to say it to us often, and we get aggravated when he'd say it. But it is a very, very true statement. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And isn't that true of us as teachers a lot? We continually do the same thing, and we expect our students to be different. We expect our students to make the changes, and we expect for them to stop doing the things that make us insane, but we ourselves don't make any changes. So that's a really important distinction and thing to note as we think about what we can do in our classroom to help us not be insane anymore. My current principal often talks to us about what's in our circle of control. You know, we are, a lot of times as humans, we are busy thinking about how other people should change and how our students should change and what they should do differently. And we oftentimes don't think about what is in my circle of control and what can I do differently. So this really is one of those lessons talking about what you as a teacher can do differently to help your students be different and to help you be a little less insane. So I want to share with you actually 7 different things that are on my list of things that kind of drive me a little bonkers, and some things that I have done to make those a little bit better. So like I said, I'm going to share these 7 with you. We're going to go over cell phones. We're going to go over the constant conversations, like right when you enter the room and the kids want to ask you some questions. And you know, you only have so long of a locker break and you can't answer that. We're going to talk about students learning to be self-sufficient. We're going to talk about a classroom. Now that may not drive you nuts, but the messy classroom drives me crazy. And we're going to talk about how I have done some things about that. We're going to talk about the bathroom pass, or just the leaving the classroom. And then just the little behaviors that start to add up and how we can alleviate that. So that's kind of my list. When I think about the things that drive me crazy in my classroom, these are some of the things that drive me the most crazy. And then I'm going to share with you how I have addressed them and how things have gotten better in those categories. So I would say probably the big one, the one that drives people the most crazy is cell phones. And cell phones in different schools is, or it's different depending upon the school you're in. I realize that. So let me tell you, in South Warren, our students are allowed to have their cell phones with them throughout the day. Now, we have different rules in place as far as it's teacher discretion if they can use their cell phone in class, and they can only use it for educational purposes. And we have some violation schedule that goes along with that. So we'll talk about that as we go on. But I just wanted to give you some perspective that our students are allowed to bring their cell phones into class. Now, whether they can use them or not, that's not what we're talking about, but they can be on their person. So what I do as a teacher is I actually collect their phones as they enter each day. So they have to store their cell phones. I have a caddy, and I'm going to show you a picture in just a minute, and I'll even have a link of where I purchased it. So they store their phone at the beginning of each class in their assigned slot. I have a very clear, defined how you're violating this policy. I have very clearly defined consequences of violating the policy. It's very cut and dry as to the way things should work. So if you want to join me on the cell phone policy, this is actually something I give my students at the beginning of each semester. We are on block schedule, so at the beginning of each semester is when our students see the cell phone policy. I have a Google form that they have to sign agreeing to this policy, so that if they violate it in any way, it will tell, they've got that agreement, that e-signature agreement to this policy. So here is how my cell phone policy works. Students, if they choose to bring their cell phone into the classroom, because, students don't have to bring their cell phone in the classroom, but they are allowed to. If they choose to bring their cell phone into my classroom, then it has to be stored in the caddy. And let me go ahead and show you the caddy while we're talking about it, because I think that will help some perspective. This is the cell phone caddy that I have on the wall, and I even have a link right here to where I purchased it on Amazon. And so the students have to put their cell phones in their assigned slot. And my computers, I'm in a computer lab, and so each of my computers are labeled with a number. So you can see that this is their assigned slot. Their cell phone goes into that slot, and that's just where it goes. I also have some power strips on either side of my caddy, which is first come, first serve. I have found that teenagers are often a little bit happier about being away from their cell phone if it can be charging while they're apart from it. So that was just something I did, just a nice little thing that I did for the students. It also gives them some incentive to get their phone up quicker because those slots go pretty quick. This picture I think I took during first block. So it obviously is, the students they have a charge because they charged it the night before, but a couple students did plug their phone in. But by fourth block, most, if not all, of those outlets are taken. So they will get their phone in a little bit faster and a little bit more efficiently so they can charge their phone. So let's go back to my policy. So again, when they walk in, they have two choices. They can put their cell phone in the assigned, or I'm sorry, if they bring it in, there's no option. It has to go in the slot. However, I have had some students' parents complain that they did not want their child's $1,000 cell phone on the wall by my desk. And I said, listen, that is fine. I understand that is an expensive piece of equipment. Your child does not have to put it in the wall. However, if they choose to bring it in my room, they do. So an alternative would be locking it in their locker, which is a way safer place for their phone. No one's going to bother. It's there. It's locked up. So that would be a great alternative. And I would love it if your child chose to do that instead. And I will tell you this, I've had that conversation with about 4 parents now, and I've never had a student take me up on that, because obviously they want to be as close to it as they possibly can. So whatever. But if they choose to do that, if they decide to lock it in their locker or leave it at home, they also have to put something in their slot. So what they have to put instead is a placeholder card. And this placeholder card looks a little something like a cell phone. And on it is their kind of agreement or their statement saying that they don't have one. So if you read along with me, it says the presence of this card in my slot signifies that I have either chosen to leave my device in my locker or that I do not have a device. I understand if I use this card and am found with a device, my consequence will be a referral. So, and that is a picture, and you guys are welcome to download that and use that and print that out if you'd like. And I will show you that those cards, if you'll see them right there, I tuck them in these little library pockets, these card pockets. And this is just, I linked to this one right here. It just happens to be the one that I have. Any of those library card pocket holders would work, but I just have them there. They're laminated and students can take those as they choose. So that really is the procedure for when they come in. I have them as you enter the classroom, that you should put them in, and you should be seated when the bell rings. I'm fairly lenient on this in the beginning, but like with many things, you have to be consistent and you have to reteach and reteach. And so maybe by the second or third week, probably closer to the second week, I expect it to be done. Technically, I have a violation down here of the way it works, as far as what happens if they don't store it right away or if they don't store it at all. And you're welcome to read that later. And by the way, you're welcome to use this. This is actually just a PDF, but you can recreate this. I am very happy to share. I've stolen many things as a teacher over the years, so it's my turn to share as well. I will tell you that this like red, green sign stuff has to do with self-warn specifically. So we have some policies in that we have a sign on the front of everybody's room. If it's on red, then a student cannot use their phone at all, educational purposes or not. And then if it's on green, they can use it for educational purposes, but they get like a 3 strikes, you're out warning on this. And it's more just like if they are using it for educational purposes, but then they flip over and check Snapchat or something like that. And we only have 15 minutes together, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. And I know that you are educated people and can read, but that's really the idea behind there. And this is where it would be much better if we were in person so we could talk through that. And I will tell you that we have, and there's my technology placeholder card. As a school, maybe 3 or 4 of us teachers started doing that initially. And we had a little bit of resistance in the beginning, but a lot of teachers have adopted this within our school building. And now we really don't have much resistance anymore. Students just expect it. And we have a BYOD exception at our school, but I'm in a computer lab and my students sit in front of a computer and they really don't need a personal device because they're sitting in front of a large one. So I just got tired of dealing with them. I took them up, and let me tell you, it has really changed the dealing with those cell phones within my classroom. I've been very happy to not have to deal with the cell phones anymore. So that's one thing that really has alleviated a lot of issues. if you do have any questions about the way I do things, my email will be on the very last slide. And I really hope that you will email and ask me some questions, and be understanding that I'm in the same boat that you're in, and that we're going back to school right now in a school that we probably don't recognize. So I will do my very best to respond to you as quickly as I can. Okay, so that's cell phones. That's my big one. And taking those up really has helped quite a bit in just the behavior and the management of it, and the taking the cell phone away and all of that. So that's my big one. The second one might sound a little mean, and I hope that it doesn't come across that way on a video. But I don't know about your school, but we have 7-minute locker breaks, which is pretty generous. But we are a very long school, which means that it takes a really long time to get from one end to the other. So they allow students a little bit more time. We're a very crowded school as well. We're very overcrowded. So we have to give quite a bit of time to get from one end to the other. But 7 minutes is still 7 minutes, and it goes super quick, because, that's my break too. And I've got to use the restroom. I've got to get my PowerPoint ready for the next class. I've got to do whatever it is that I need in that 7 minutes, maybe make a copy, whatever the case may be. So for me, that locker break time is just really crucial. So something that kind of drives me crazy is students saying, "Hey, Miss Cunningham, what are we doing today?" And I love that they want to know that answer, but I cannot answer that question 6 times in that 7 minutes and still have to go to the restroom and get my PowerPoint open and go ask a teacher a question, and you get my drift. So I have started sharing what we're doing today in a specific way. Also, along this same line, so I am a parent of a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And one thing that I've learned as a parent, and I'm getting better at picking up on these things, but I have learned that my kids just do better if they know what to expect. If they know what's coming, if they know, okay, today we are going to do this. So I realized that if my toddler can figure that out, well, then my teenagers really are just large toddlers, and that's going to work for them as well. So I want my teenagers to know what we're doing for the day, but I can't physically answer that question over and over and over again. So sharing your expectations is incredibly important. So this is kind of what I do each day. I post our daily learning targets and objectives every single day on a Google slide, and I link that specific slide to the class's Google Calendar. Of course, I think most administrations have an expectation of your learning targets being posted, especially so when they walk in, they can know what you're doing for the day. But I will show you when we get to my number 3 thing that drives me crazy, how doing it in this digital way as well really will help. Another big one. And the other thing I do is also kind of give the kids a heads up as to where we are going with our tests, projects, and those kind of things. So I'll show you, this is what my daily agenda looks like. It looks like for now, we actually just switched to, in our school, they have asked our entire school to go to Google Classroom. I've never used Google Classroom before. I've always used Schoology as my platform, as my online classroom platform. So this is kind of new for me. So I'm changing things up a little bit, but this is, I think, the way I'm going to do it. And I have a Google presentation. It's just a slide of what we're doing for the day. So I've got our learning target, and that is, my I can statement, and it's over here on the right-hand side. And then I've got our agenda, like this is what we are planning to do today. Within this, and you can click on that picture and it'll take you to this slide eventually. Within this, I also include any links that the kids may need for the day, any resources. This is an ed puzzle that goes over how to, that the kids would do on their independently. And they would watch a video on relative and absolute cell references and answer some questions. If you've never used Edpuzzle, that's another lesson for another day, but look into that one for sure. They would also download this workbook from GCF. And then I tell them we're going to continue our Excel notes, and then we're going to have an assignment that you also have to complete. So this is going to be linked each day on their Google Calendar. And later I'll show you how that plays in. So every day when the students come in, they're going to be able to look at this and know what's coming. And I'm going to also post it, project it, at the start of each class so they can kind of know what's ahead, but they'll need to get to it themselves if they're going to be able to do these different links. I did get this from this agenda from Teachers Pay Teachers. So you give credit where credit is due. If you are interested in this kind of agenda, you can go to this Teachers Pay Teachers site, and she's got lots of cute little things on there as well. The other thing I do is I have a poster where I tell them their next quiz. So, it's like begin with the end in mind, right? If I know when my next quiz is coming, it really helps ground me as I'm learning each day to know, to give me just some perspective and to keep myself on track with that. Now, what I've done is this poster, I created it. I just kind of put the letters on it and the numbers, and then I laminated it. And you can just write on it with dry erase marker. And then you can just kind of change that as time goes on. This is obviously an old picture because we didn't have a May, but you can see that I tell them when their project's due, when their next test is. This was at the very end of school a couple of years ago when I took this picture, so it was mostly projects. But if we have a quiz coming up, whatever that quiz is, I'll also post that there as well. And it's right in the front of the classroom so that kids can see it and really just know where they're headed. So that has been really helpful for me, for students, to help them just know where we're headed, know what we're doing. It gives them perspective, and it helps really. There's a whole school of thought on why that helps with even their behavior in class, is to know the expectations, and then they just behave better if they know what's coming. So that's number 2. Number 3 goes along with that, and that is the question when a kid shows up after they've been absent and says, "Hey, Miss Cunningham, I was absent yesterday. What did I miss?" And that is a very important question. But when they ask you in your 7-minute locker break and you've really got to pee and you've got to get set up for today's lesson and you just don't really have the time to answer them right that second, that is just one of those things that me personally, it just kind of drove me crazy. So I want to share some things with you that I do for absences, and also like what putting it back on the student and putting on them to be self-sufficient to figure that out for themselves. And then also some things I have in place for makeup work. So we have a routine. Again, for everything that we do, we have a routine. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it's really important to practice these routines and really review them and go over them over and over and over again. I typically go over all of these things with the students for the first 2 weeks of school. We revisit them and revisit them and revisit them. And I may, a month in, think we got to go over this again, and I go over it again. I always do after like fall break or after Labor Day, long weekend, whatever it is, I go back over these procedures and routines that I have in place so that students can remember what is expected of them. You do this, again, teenagers are just large toddlers. So you can do this with your toddlers. You go over the expectations with them all the time. Before we go to a friend's house, we'll say things like, don't go up the stairs, or, my 4-year-old we're having trouble with the potty. So that's really all I can think about right now is, don't put your hand in the potty. This is the things that we talk to my 4-year-old about before we go places. So just like that, you have to talk with your teenagers about it. Hopefully you don't have to tell them to put their hand in the potty, but you would say, okay, don't forget, these are the 4 things we do after we're absent. And don't think just because you told them once that they know that. And that as well as I do, telling a student something one time is not sufficient. You have got to tell them over and over and over again. Back to that definition of insanity. If you do it once, it's not going to make a difference. You're just going to make yourself insane. So you've got to control what you can to help them change. Okay, so I have a routine that when students are absent, they have to do 4 things. I have this written in 2 places. One is visible in the room and one is in the syllabus. And again, we practice it. So the first thing they have to do is check the You Were Missed folders. The second thing is they check that daily agenda that we just talked about, so they can see what we did yesterday. The third thing they do is ask someone sitting near them if they need a little help. Oh, okay, this says we continued our Excel notes. What does that mean? Can I get the notes from you? Those kind of things. And then if they've gone through all 3 of those and they still need help, that is when I come in. And that's my job. That's my job to help them. But a lot of those questions we're answering are questions they could have answered for themselves. So that's why it's really important to help them know what to do in those first 3 steps. So that when they get to me, they really genuinely do need help and they do need my expertise to help them. Okay, so the first one is this You Were Missed folder. So I have a bulletin board in my room, and I've got some folders that are open at the top and they are just stapled down the sides. And I just put any handouts that I have. So if I'm handing out some guided notes one day and 2 students aren't here, I'll write their names on them and then I put them in the folder. If I'm handing back any work and the student is not here, I put them in the folder, etc. So you can see that this is a really easy way. It's a very visible way for students to get their information after they've been absent, any kind of handouts. I also display this poster, and I can't remember now. This is a really cool poster. And again, I got it from Teachers Pay Teachers. I think I've got a link to it in a minute on my syllabus. I'll show you that one. But this poster has a place for you to put the 4 steps in. And then I just printed it real big and put it in my room. And I love this poster from, I think it was like $3, but I'm happy to throw $3 to a teacher to help them out because they are helping me out immensely. So I have those 4 steps that we just talked about on this poster. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. The other thing is the Google Calendar. And this is, again, I'm just kind of trying it out this year with my agenda. On Schoology, I just did a calendar entry. And that was where our daily agenda was, and that showed up on the homepage. But on Google Calendar, we just have to do things a little bit different. But this is where I'm at now. Once I get through a semester of Google Classroom, I may have a different perspective, but at least you can see the way things work. So what I do is I have just a calendar entry for that day's objectives. So on August 12th, those will be the objectives for the day. And within that will be a link to that agenda that I shared with you. Now, this is just a bonus tip that what you can do. My daily agenda so far is just one big PowerPoint. And I have changed, after the word edit, I deleted everything else out and I changed it to present. And then I scroll to the slide that I want, and that's the URL I copy and paste so that my 812 objectives will take me to the slide about 812. If I lost you on that one, just email me. I'd be happy to help you with that. And that's what I did for your PowerPoint. This PowerPoint, if you can see up here, it may be a little hard to see, instead of the word edit, I changed it to the word present. And now we are on this specific slide. So if I were to copy and paste this URL right here, it would take you to this slide, not to the very first slide in the PowerPoint. So that's really helpful if they can just, okay, they were absent on the 14th, they come in the next Monday, and they can go to the Google Calendar and click on that to see specifically what they missed. So that's really helpful for students who have missed something, and they follow those 4 steps every time. So I'm not having to answer that question anymore, or as in detailed when a student says, hey, I was absent yesterday, what did I miss? And again, I want my students to be self-sufficient. I don't know about you, but I want them to teach themselves to do things independently and without me having to tell them every little thing. So displaying these, having these patterns, having these routines really helps them to be able to do that. Okay, now what happens when they are absent is they also have missing assignments. Often they have missing assignments, or, I don't know, they didn't get it finished, it's late, etc. So that is also something that kind of goes along with this. Maybe it probably should have its own bullet, but it's really hard to keep up with. And it's hard for the students to keep up with what's missing and can I still turn it in and all that good stuff. So what I do, this is just so small, but it's something that is an indicator to parents, to myself, to students. What I do within Infinite Campus is I will mark an assignment missing if a student hasn't turned it in from being absent or just didn't finish it and didn't turn it in. I will mark it missing if I will still accept it. And you know that if you mark it missing, it counts it as a 0. I like this over blank because sometimes I just leave something blank because I haven't finished grading it, or I was in the middle of grading the assignments and I got a phone call and I didn't get to finish the last half of the alphabet. So it's blank, whatever. But if it's blank, it doesn't count against their grade. And I don't really like that. I think that's a really bad perspective on what their grade is in the class. If a student has done 1 assignment out of 10, well, they're sitting pretty on an A when really they should have like a 10% in the class or whatever the case may be. So I will change that to missing, which means that I will still accept it. Our school has a policy, you've got 5 days to make up an assignment after an absence. So when it goes past that 5 days, then I will change that missing to a 0, which means that I will no longer accept it. So it's just a slight thing, and it indicates to the student and to the parents. It's the same in the grade book. It counts the same in the grade book. It means the same in the grade book, but it tells the student something different. Now you have to teach them that. You have to train them on what that means. So I will show you how I train them. And again, I go over and over it with them. So I will show you my syllabus. And I got this syllabus template from Teachers Pay Teachers as well, but I've had it for a long time and I cannot find where I purchased it on Teachers Pay Teachers. So I apologize. I would love to share this template with you, but I can't find it. So you're welcome to copy the wording. That's fine. But as far as the setup goes, again, this is from someone. I just don't know where it came from. So I apologize about that. But this is my digital literacy syllabus. You can look around if you'd like. But I want to show you specifically the makeup work section. Here's that link to that. I want to show you the poster that's in my room. So it talks to you about makeup work, and this is where I review it with the students. This is what I share with the parents, and this is what I go over and over and over with students, is this makeup work section. So this is the calendar, or the poster that I have hanging in my room of when a student is has missed school, what things they need to do. So I just think it's kind of cute too. Did I miss anything important? Yes. Now that we're past that, follow these steps if you were absent or if you have missing work. So these are those 4 steps that we talked about, and those are hanging in my room. And again, I address them with the students, and I just have this printed nice and big for the students to be able to look at. And then I also talk to them about the missing versus 0. And then these last 2, this is just something, or this number 4 is something kind of small. A lot of times, well, I guess this may be a little different now that I'm on Classroom, because I think it syncs with Infinite Campus. So forgive me on this, but when I was in Schoology, what would happen sometimes is a student, or I guess really anything, maybe like a student would go and finish an Everfi module. Well, Everfi is not connected to Schoology or Google Classroom. And so what a student could do is they would go and finish it, and I had no idea to go look at it. So I've already got it graded. I've marked them as missing in Infinite Campus, but I don't know that they've gone and completed this assignment. So I tell the students, if something's graded in Infinite Campus and is marked as missing, you have to let me know to go over and grade it. You have to let me know that you have completed this Everfi module, this typing.com lesson, whatever it is. Otherwise, I won't know to go and grade it. So that's just something small. And really the big thing that I tell students, I have put a lot of procedures in place with your missing assignments, with your work, with your makeup work, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to stay current on assignments. You know, your boss is not going to tell you every day, don't forget to do these 6 things for your job, or whatever the case may be. You have to take it upon yourself to take care of these things. So I put these things in place. I do my best as a teacher to help them be self-sufficient, but at the end of the day, they've got to do it for themselves. All right, so that is my makeup work. And again, you're welcome to any of those resources that I've shared along the way. Makeup test. So I also keep this running poster in my room for when students have missed a test. And again, this is laminated, and so I can dry erase it, but I don't let my students make up tests in class. And that's because, you know, we're busy, we've got stuff going on. And if they make up this test, well, then they're going to miss this assignment, or, you know, I mean, it can be endless. So I have them make it up after school in our ESS, or they just kind of have to schedule a time with me. You know, I've been doing this for 14 years and I've never had a problem with it. So it does work. You might have a little bit of headache, but it does work. I find that that's better than having a student take class time to make up a test. So because of that, it's easy to forget when a kid has forgotten a test. And I will tell you, with tests specifically, I don't mark those as missing. I feel like that's not really fair. I do leave those blank. And so because I leave those blank, I put it on this board so that we both can remember, hey, you've got to make up this test and you've got to make it up soon, because if you don't make it up, it's going to turn into a 0. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. So this one has to do with beginning, kind of keeping the classroom looking good and keeping things going well. These next 2 have to do with that. So, you know, we have routines that I'm in a lab and there's a lot of things going on. So we have a lot of routines for the beginning of the day and the end of the day to kind of keep things moving smoothly and going well. And I'm very clear about this needs to be done at the beginning of class, and we practice it, which feels really silly, but it's really important to practice it. I promise you that. Okay, so set very clear expectations for what you want your students to do at the very beginning of the class and at the very end of the class. It helps keep your class clean and neat, but it also alleviates that delayed 5-minute start to class that happens sometimes. So that's really important to have beginning of day procedures. I display these in the room, we review them, and we practice them. I mean, like literally we practice them for 2 weeks. So I'll share you my two, let me scoot myself out of the way a little bit. I'll share you my two login procedure, or my beginning of day and my end of day procedures. And they're real simple. At the beginning of the day, you know, we have a PC lab, and students, it's really funny, they're not used to having a separate monitor and a tower. So I have to tell them to turn their monitor on. Okay, but again, if you don't tell students things and you just expect them to know, you're the one insane, not them. So turn your monitor on, we sign on to the computer, then we go straight to our Google Classroom, open today's objectives, and then they either start whatever is labeled as intro, because a lot of times I have like a bell ringer intro for them, or they just wait for further instructions, whatever the case may be. And that way they know what we're doing for the day. They're getting started on something while I'm handling anything, maybe somebody who still needs some help, whatever the case may be. But it's every day, start of day. And it really, once you train them how to do it, it is amazing what a difference that makes to your class period. If they do those same 5 things every single day, then they're ready to go. And you don't have to wait for them, and you don't have to tell them. You know, I hear teachers say, okay, go ahead and pull out your notes or whatever. And that's something they do every single day. Well, if you just have that expectation, this is what we're doing every single day, well, then it's just going to be done for you. And then they're going to be self-sufficient and do that independently. At the end of the day, we also have some ways to keep the classroom clean, and just to make sure that our computers are working efficiently. You know, I have them sign out. We go over the why of that at some point. I have them turn their monitor off because there's no point in those monitors just running. So I have them go ahead and turn the monitor off, clean up their area, and then push their chair all the way under. And that one is, you would think that's small, but if you don't tell them to push their chair under, your classroom is a maze to get through. All right, so I'm running low on time, so I'm going to kind of go through these last couple fairly quickly. So along with keeping your class clean is letting your students use your resources. So it's really important. Now, I'm an organized person, and I know that not everyone is an organized person like me, but having a defined place for everything really helps you, and it helps your students stay more organized. So having that defined place, having a label that says this is where the pencils are, whatever it is, really helps as well. And implementing procedures for things they need to permission to borrow. So whatever that is, signing out a video camera or any kind of procedures that go along with that. And then practicing where to find them. So this scavenger hunt was one that was from Tanya Skinner. She came to the KACT summer conference a couple of years ago, and she shared this scavenger hunt. This is my modified version of it. You're welcome to take it. You can actually probably Google Tanya Skinner Classroom Scavenger Hunt. And this is just how I teach my kids how to use the resources in my classroom. And this is what we do on that first day. Instead of me telling them where the trash can is, instead of me telling them where the, the tripods are for the camera, they go find them and they do this little scavenger hunt. So that works really well for us. Number 6, oh boy, I've got 5 minutes and this one's a little complicated. So leaving the classroom, what we do is we actually have the students check in and out on a Google form. So this will help, it'll help you know where your students are. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of generous in letting my kids go to the restroom, and then I'll forget, like they'll call down and ask for Jenny, and I'm like, where's Jenny? I know she's here today. And so this will help me alleviate that. It also keeps having them check in and out on this Google form, keeps track of their bathroom visits. That way you can kind of see if you have a person repeatedly asking, and then it also keeps track of how long students are gone. So I will just kind of share this with you. You all can look at this later. But this is the hall pass that I use. It's really simple. The students check in, they check out if they're going to the restroom. And this is just right at the top of my Google, my topics in my Google Classroom. So are you checking in or are you checking out of the classroom? So if I am leaving the classroom, I'm going to tell what my name is. So I'm going to the restroom. I tell what my name is, and that's it. And so what it will do is it will, you know how Google Forms work. It'll show on the Google spreadsheet, it will show that the student checked in and checked out. And then I have them leave this up. You see that your response has been recorded. As long as you've been given permission from Ms. Cunningham, you may now leave the classroom. And then I have them leave this on their monitor. So when they sign back in, they can just submit another response and basically just tell me that they have returned to the classroom. And this one is just a little bit different in that it only asks for their name when they return. I don't need to know where they went. So you can see that hall pass, this is how it is set up. I love that because it is really helpful for me to keep track of things. And then it's also helpful for administration if a student leaves and goes somewhere they're not supposed to. I've been able to share evidence with them about that. So that's been really helpful. Excuse me. Now what I do is I will, like I said, I put this at the top of the classroom. If you are in a lab, it's super simple, but if you're not in a lab, you can have maybe like an old iPad in the corner, and that could be what your restroom pass is. So you could just have a link already on the iPad, or you could do like a QR code that's nearby and the students could just kind of scan that. However you want to handle that, it works really well for me in a lab setting. And if you're in a lab setting, that would also work really well. Okay, last one. Now I'm going to go through this really quick. Has to do with little behaviors starting to add up. So at our school, we have a three minor violations equals a major violation, and we turn it in to the office. But this is kind of come out of students, those little behaviors students do that isn't really that big of a deal, but the more they do it, it really starts to add up to being a big deal. So what I do is I track a student's minor behaviors on a Google form. And that way I can see on my Google sheet the number of violations, what it's doing. I can kind of look for those patterns. And maybe it's not about turning it into a major violation, turning it into the office. Maybe it's about, they've slept 3 days in a row and finding out that, something's going on in their home life that you need to be aware of. So just a way to easily and quickly keep track of that. So this is a Google form as well. And this is the time where I would show you, but for time's sake, I would, and you could do this on your phone. You just pull it up with your phone and you scan it in, and it takes you to that Google form that will tell you, and it's super simple. It's just student name, date, if different than today, and then what happened. And so it's just quick, easy, and you put it in, and then it dumps it into that spreadsheet so you can keep a quick assessment or quick up-to-date of what your student is doing repeatedly, so that you can kind of monitor those little things that add up eventually into a big thing. So what I do is I have this QR code just on the corner of my desk. And you can see this is all you have to do now with the QR code. If you don't know, is you open up your photo app, and then when you scan it on, it'll pop up the website, and you can click on it and open that. So I do that. I have that little QR code on the corner of my desk, and I just have my phone handy. And anytime a student has something small, I scan it super quick, enter it super quick, and move on with my life. I've taught this at my school, and some of the teachers at my school, they actually have it bookmarked on their Chrome, and they just click on it and enter it in on their Chrome as well. So that makes it a little bit simple. Okay, I went through those last few really quick, and I apologize about that. But it's a little different doing it on a video. You lose track of time a little bit quicker. All right, so let me give you a few last tips to go over with you. So the biggest thing with this is that consistency is, excuse me, key. You know this as well as I do, but predictability and just having the same thing in place is just game changing for behavior. It's something that's called predictable positive attention. So knowing that it is something that is coming is really going to make a difference with behavior in your class. And just, I mean, we all do better if we know what to expect. And I think that's part of why this pandemic has been so difficult for us, is because it's constantly changing and we don't know what to expect. So within your classroom, having it be as absolutely consistent as you possibly can is really the key to making this work. Also, along with that is practicing. You have got to practice. You've got to review your expectations. Like I said, every day for the first few weeks, I will go over this, especially after returning from breaks. We practice it, we review it. We do everything we can to make it something that the students really know and really just, it's secondhand nature to them. And a thing that's also very important is telling them why it's important, explaining their the importance. So why are we doing beginning of day procedures? Well, it's to make our class more efficient, to help us to be ready to get started when I'm ready to get started. Why do we turn the monitors off? Well, it's to keep to conserve energy, and I really like these monitors and I want them to last for several years, so we're going to turn them off to save the power. And you get the idea. Just giving them that little why, even if it's small, it helps me as a person to know why I'm doing something. So if the students can know why as well, that's going to help them. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Again, I really wish that I could answer these questions in person with you. But if not, go ahead and just shoot me an email, ask me anything. You can follow me on the various platforms. I'm at Miss Cunningham SW. This is the link, this bit.ly down here. This is the link to the editable version of this PowerPoint. So if this is something that you want to change or make a copy of, and edit it for your school, that is totally fine. I'm happy for you to borrow that and to share it. I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope that this has taught you something, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference. See ya.